What up, Jumzy here, welcome back to another Dead by Daylight video. Today, I will be ranking all the killers in Dead by Daylight that are the most fun to face. I hope you enjoy. First up, we have the Trapper. The Trapper, in my opinion, doesn't really have the most fun power, as it doesn't have much counterplay. Yeah, sure, you can disarm the bear traps, but you can't do that when you're being chased or when the Trapper's nearby. His power is very situational, making him sometimes rather boring to face because of the lack of varied gameplay. You're always aware of his traps and looking for them, which I do kinda like. So for now, I will place him on the E tier. Next up, we have the Wraith. The Wraith is a very simple killer, but I do really like him. He is stealthy, which in my opinion are some of the most fun killers, but he is also just an M1 killer, which is just very fun overall. His add-ons make for fun and varied gameplay, although some might be less fun than others. Overall, the Wraith is a pretty fun killer to face, since you always need to be on the lookout for him, and keep remembering all the fun little gimmicks he has, such as the speed boost after he uncloaks or the cloaking mechanic in general. However, he's also a kind of bland killer, so for that reason I'm gonna be putting him in the B tier. Up next we have the Hillbilly. Now the Hillbilly used to be the most beloved killer to face for quite a while, but after his buff with the removal of the overheat mechanic, he is a little bit less fun to face. But he is still a really fun killer to face in my opinion. Now sometimes he might be strong, but I really like the fun mind games you can do with him, especially if it's a chainsaw only Billy. Now obviously, while he can be fun in chase, he's also very strong, with him having one of the best mobility powers. So for that reason, I'm gonna put him right under the Wraith in the B tier. Next up we have the Nurse, the strongest killer in Dead by Daylight. Now the thing with the Nurse is that you either get a really bad or average newer Nurse, which is usually pretty fun to face, or you get an absolute sweatlord P100 comp Nurse with full meta perks, which is not very fun. Personally, I find it a bit weird that Nurse literally is the only killer in the entire game that completely ignores the only thing survivors have to fight back against killers. But I do like the way it can change gameplay sometimes. But yeah, it's not the most fun killer to face, but luckily you don't see that many nurses on a regular basis. So I will put her right here at the bottom of the C tier. Next we have the Shape, or Michael Myers. Now Mikey is an interesting one. First of all, the add-ons are obviously way too overpowered. Tombstone Piece, or Judas Tombstone, literally allows you to completely get rid of any survivors without needing a hook or even a down. These add-ons are not very fun, obviously, but in my opinion Michael Myers can be very fun. For example, his Scratched Mirror add-on on an indoor map can be hilarious to face, just because it gives that horror element of not knowing where he is and when he will be there. Though the base killer is a little meh in my opinion, because he just looks at you until he can insta-down you. So for that I will put him right above the Trapper in the E tier. Up next is the Hag. Now the Hag is a killer that a lot of people don't like, and I'm definitely one of them. Now I know, yes, her power can be fun to go against and can make for fun mind games, but I absolutely despise the way it makes your camera lock and flick at the set of trap. Like, why? It's so annoying. It can completely screw up your movement, and I guess that's kind of the idea, but a sound alone can just do the trick just fine in my opinion. But I do get that people like to face her. I just find her a little blech or something. So I will put her on the bottom of the E tier as well. Next up we have the Doctor. Now the Doctor is a very cool killer, but his power can sometimes be absolutely annoying. I do like all the small gimmicks and complicating things his power has, but there are a few things that make it a little unfun to face. Now obviously, the way you can't use your item when you're in tier 3 madness is stupid in my opinion. I also don't like his anti-loop power that much, mainly because it's fairly boring and bland. But it's not that bad. Like you can try to dodge his electric shock and then vault or throw the pallet for example. And you do need some game knowledge to know whether or not you're gonna make that pallet or window with or without getting shocked, which is pretty fun. Now he does have some good things, but he is more on the unfun side, so I will put him in the D tier for now. Next we have an absolute treasure, the Huntress. Now add-onless Huntress is in my opinion one of the most balanced killer, and is also really fun to face. This is definitely worthy of an S tier, because it's just really fun trying to predict where hatches go, and try certain and different mind games, whether or not you should greet the pallet or just throw it, dodge and weave and everything. It's just really, really fun. Especially if it's a good Huntress that can do like orbitals or cross map snipes, which is also just really, really cool and requires a lot of skill. So to play against one is very cool in my opinion. Next, we have another beloved killer, the Cannibal, or Leatherface, or Baba, or Booba, or Baba Sawyer, or Bubbers, or Big Man. Baba is not only a really fun killer to face, he's also really goofy, and that's just fun. I really like how you need some game knowledge to know whether or not you're gonna make that pallet before he hits you with his chainsaw, or whether you should hop into a locker or just take the vault. Timing his tantrum in a locker is also really, really fun and satisfying if you pull it off. However, he's not as fun as an S tier killer in my opinion, so I will put him on top of A tier for now. Up next, we have the Nightmare, or Freddy Krueger. Now, a lot of people really dislike the Nightmare, but I honestly don't find him that bad. It's not like I really like him, because the Nightmare realm can be a little annoying sometimes, but it's not like I absolutely despise him or anything. I just don't mind facing him that much. He's quite simple, yet he has some fun little mechanics to him. So we'll put him right in the middle tier, in the C tier. Then we have the Pig. The Pig is another killer not many people like, but I feel like that's mainly because of her head traps. I find her to be quite fun, and sometimes goofy with her dash ability. The reverse bear traps can be a pain to deal with sometimes, but other than that, she is pretty alright to face, especially if you can get some of that boop the snoot action going. So I'll put her right above the Wraith in B tier, just because she has a little bit more going than just a basic M1 killer. Up next, we have the Clown. Now the Clown is also not very fun in my opinion. It's basically throw a purple bottle, you slow. You don't fast vault, you get hit. I also really dislike the way your screen becomes all distorted with the purple bottle, even after the nerf of it. He is very simple and doesn't really have much fun counterplay in my opinion, so I will put him right under the Doctor in the D tier. Next up, we have the Spirit. The Spirit is another killer not many people like, mainly because of her strength, but I find her to be quite fun to face. It's just that I am really bad at facing her, which makes it less fun to face her. But I do really like the idea and the way you can face her, but obviously it is very strong. So for that reason, I just don't really mind facing her, so I'll put her in the C tier with the Nightmare. We might as well call this tier the don't mind tier, because all the killers in here are just killers I don't really mind facing. Next, we have the Legion. Now unfortunately, the Legion's power is something way different than the community hoped and expected after seeing its trailer, as it looked like their power could have been something like mimicking survivors. But we got this power instead, which is quite a disappointment in my opinion. Now the main reason a lot of people don't really like this killer is because of the mending simulator. But other than that, they're just kind of boring in my opinion. Like it's either they see you go in Feral Frenzy, hit you and leave you, or see you go in Feral Frenzy, hit you and cancel power to continue the chase as a basic M1 killer. I would have put them in the C tier, but I actually do kind of mind facing them, so I will put them in the top of D tier instead. Next up, we have the Plague. The Plague is a killer that has a pretty unique and quite fun power to face, but in solo queues she can be a pain because a lot of survivors just immediately cleanse the moment they get sick, which is usually not the play, because then the Plague gets a red puke, which instantly removes a health state upon contact with it. But I do like the dodging of her puke for some reason, and she's pretty alright. Again, this is a killer I don't mind facing, so I'll put her on the top of C tier. Up next, we have the Ghostface. The Ghostface is a pretty fun killer, a better version than Michael Myers in my opinion, because you can actually do things like body blocking, as stalking only exposes one survivor instead of all of them. I really like the stealth horror part of this killer, as he can be a bit spooky at times, which is always really fun. Other than that, he is just a basic M1 killer, which in this case I don't mind. The only bad thing about this killer is the reveal mechanic, which can be very finicky sometimes, but other than that, this killer is awesome. Another A tier killer for sure. Then we have the Demogorgon, another beloved killer. The Demogorgon is also one of the most balanced killers in my opinion. His shred ability is very fun to face, as it has a lot of counterplay and can offer for unique mind games. His portal ability is also alright, like I don't mind facing that part at all. I usually don't even think about it that much. But yeah, this is another easy S tier killer. Then we have yet another absolute unit of a killer, the Oni. And this is another very balanced and very fun killer to face. It's always a race of trying to stay healthy so you don't leave any blood orbs, giving the Oni his power, although his power is very cool and fun to face. Even the 180s can be cool. Another big S tier killer as well. Up next, we have the Deathslinger. The Deathslinger is a killer that is kind of mixed, I feel like. There are a lot of people that don't really like to face him, which I can understand. I personally really like dodging his power, kind of like the Huntress, but very different. I do think the spear sometimes is a little finicky, but other than that, he is pretty fun to face. So I'll put him on the top of B tier. Next up is the Executioner or Pyramid Head. The Executioner is another very fun killer to face, although he can be strong if the killer knows what they're doing. His ranged ability is very counterable and can offer for some fun mind games. His whole tormenting ability is also pretty fun. He is definitely another S tier killer to face. Then we have the Blight. Now the Blight is obviously one of the strongest killers in Dead by Daylight, making him very unfun for many people, but I personally kinda like to face him. He can be unfun, sure, but I do like the game knowledge you need or trying to juke his attacks. He's a killer I wouldn't mind facing that much, but a little more, so I will put him at the bottom of the B tier. Up next we have the Twins. And now honestly, I don't get why so many people dislike the Twins so much. Like, yeah, I get that the slugging part is very boring and lame, but other than that, they're not that bad. I do agree that Victor is a little uncounterable at times, but I don't mind it that much. Now, I'm not saying I like to face the Twins, because I don't, but I wouldn't mind seeing them a little bit more. But for now, I will put her under the Clown in the D tier. Then we have the Trickster. 1000% an F tier. What a dumb, boring, and stupid killer this is. His power is like the Huntress, but 10 times worse. So you either get found in an open place where there's absolutely nothing you can do at all, or you get found in a fairly closed off place where he can't really use his power, so he just has to M1 you. This is legitimately one of the worst game design choices I have ever seen in any game. There is no such thing as fun with the Trickster. His power is very numb and mindless, and it's just not, no, definitely F tier. Next up, we have the Nemesis. Now, a lot of people don't really like to face a Nemesis because of his anti-loop power, but I find him to be kind of fun to face. His zombies make for funny, but sometimes annoying gameplay, and his tentacle can make for fun mind games in my opinion. So I will put him in the B tier, under the Deathslinger. Up next is the Cenobite, or Pinhead. The Cenobite is an absolute pain in solo queue, as you don't have any way of communicating with your teammates to decide who goes for the box. But in chase, he's probably one of the most well-designed killers in the entire game. His chains are extremely balanced and fun to face, and have a lot of counterplay to them. Now, the chain hunt is very annoying, so that definitely makes this killer go down on the tier list, but I will still put him in between the Deathslinger and Nemesis in the B tier. Next up, we have the Artist. Now, the Artist is actually a really fun killer to face in my opinion, in chase and out of chase. Her crows offer for unique mind games, and sometimes even playstyles. I also just really like her crows in general, especially because it's quite unique. There's also a lot of counterplay, which is very important in my opinion. So I will put her in between the Cannibal and the Ghostface in the A tier. Then we have the Onryõ or Sadako. Now, I find her to be not that fun because she's very complicated and I just don't really like facing her. I honestly don't really know what it is, but she is just not really fun. I don't know why, but she's just no. So I'll just put her between the Twins and the Clown in the D tier. Up next we have the Dredge. Now, what I like about the Dredge is the horror element that Nightfall gives. I've had so many moments where I got jump scared by this abomination while seeing absolutely nothing but black fog. His anti-loop is pretty alright and has some counterplay, so I don't really mind facing him that much, meaning he goes into the C tier. Next up, we have the Mastermind. Now, the reason why so many people play this killer is obviously because he's extremely fun to both play and face. He has counterplay, he is funny and goofy, and overall just really fun. Yet another S tier for sure. Then we have the Knight. The unfortunate thing about this killer is that the idea of his power is very cool and unique, but the way it's implemented is absolute trash. His guards are either really bad when playing as the Knight or very uncounterable when facing the Knight. I don't like the Knight at all, up to a point where I'd rather face a Trickster than a Knight. So this is definitely the worst killer to face in my opinion, giving him the sweet little spot of the bottom F tier. Next up is the Skull Merchant. Oh boy. Now, my opinion about her might be controversial, but I actually don't mind facing her. She has changed a lot since her release, and now she isn't really that bad anymore. Now, I am talking about her power. Her appearance is absolutely, utterly weird, stupid, and just no. I might make a whole separate video about the Skull Merchant, so if you'd like to see that, make sure to let me know. But yeah, I don't mind facing her, so she will just be right in between the Spirit and the Dredge in the C tier. Then we have the Singularity. The Singularity is just like the Nurse, one of the most mixed killers for me. He can be absolutely annoying and feel uncounterable, but he can also be very fun and have a lot of counterplay. So I will put him right above the Nurse in C tier, as I do think he's more on the unfun side than the fun side to face. Up next, we have the Xenomorph, or Alien. The Xenomorph is not very fun to face in my opinion. This is because his tail attack is very busted. It's not only very finicky, but it's also usually uncounterable and just not very fun to face. I also don't like the turrets that much, as you have to think, and I'm really bad at thinking, so that doesn't really work. So I will put him in the bottom of the D tier. Next up, we have the good guy, or Chucky. Chucky is actually a really fun killer in my opinion. I really like his power, especially after the nerf of only being able to scamper when you are dashing. His stealth ability makes for fun yet scary gameplay, and the footfalls are a great addition to this. And his toxicity and voice lines are beyond perfect. Although strong, he is very fun to face, placing him in between the Cannibal and Artist in the A tier. And then we have my favorite killer to face in the entire game, the Unknown. Oh my god, this killer is literally perfect. One of, if not the best addition we've got in DBD in a very long while. This killer is super fun to face. His teleportability is very balanced and fair. His UVX ability is also extremely fun to face. And the whole weakened part of his kit is also very well designed. One of, if not the most balanced killers in the game. We have to look at the killer to get rid of the weakened, which will remove a health state if you get hit by the UVX again, which will bounce one and have a radius. There's also so much counterplay and fun things you can do against this killer. It's just perfect. And then I haven't even talked about the Unknown's appearance and voice lines. A very well deserved place on top of the S tier. And then last but certainly not least, we have the Lich, or Vecna. The Lich is honestly a killer I don't mind, but is a little more fun than that. So I will place him right above the Blight in the B tier. He has 4 spells, with all of them having some kind of counterplay. Now there's a lot to think about with all the magic items, chests and different abilities, but I think that is what makes this killer fun. So this is my definite tier list of killers that are the most fun to face in Dead by Daylight. Make sure to let me know your opinions down below, and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!